What's happening, Andy? Here, I'm joined today by Monty White of Distribution Management. DM, how are you today?
I'm doing great, Andy. How are you this morning?
I am great. Good to see you. I wanted to chat with you. We have signed you guys up as a sponsor of our publication and wanted to kind of dig in and learn a little bit more and inform our viewers and followers, who's DM and what do you guys do for the industry? And it's probably a lot more things that you do than people typically recognize you for. So with that, why don't you give us a little bit about who's distribution management and then tell us what you do for them.
Sure. Distribution management, we are a wholesale distributor of printing and imaging products. We actually have two lines of business. One is third-party fulfillment for non-printing brands, but the piece of business that's most applicable to your viewership would be our wholesale printing and imaging business. So the company's been in business over 50 years. We've been in the wholesale printing and imaging business since 1991. We sell to a variety of channels. Certainly, your readership and the BTA channel is a critical part of that because those partners consume the products that we sell. And so, if you think about kind of where we participate in a broader distribution business, we have a similar business model as companies like Ingram Micro, TD SYNNEX, even Ascendant that play in that space. But our specialization is printing and imaging and has been really since the inception of the business.
When did you guys start? I mean, you've been this is what you grew out of, right? Or grew into.
Yeah, we so the legacy of the business was our chairman and founder Tom Fleming was began a resale business, almost a B2B business selling mainly IBM typewriter ribbons. And in the early days and in those days, those were the primary consumable products. We branched into a wholesale business. Our first partnership was with Lexmark in 1991, where they gave us our first wholesale contract, and HB expanded with us not too long after that. And so in those days, it was almost exclusively toner, ink, ribbons, and we went to market under the brand of Supplies Network. And so some of the partners may still recall that brand. We rebranded a number of years, and because we really felt like the branding of distribution management was more suited for what we sold because we sell much more than just supplies these days.
You do. And we're going to talk about some of these other areas you've expanded into and some of these new relationships that you've kind of announced this year. Well, you have announced this year. What's your role there? What do you do and how long have you been with them?
I am the senior VP of merchandising at DM. I've been with the company for 15 years. I'm a bit of a distribution journeyman, having worked for three prior distributors in this business prior to joining DM. But my responsibility basically is the vendor side of the business, right? And the manufacturers that we work with. And so I have a team of product management professionals, of purchasing and inventory management professionals that work with our various manufacturer partners to ensure that we have the right products, that we're leveraging the proper programs, and that we're enabling our sales organization to most effectively sell those products so that we garner appropriate share of market and provide the value to the partners that we support.
Well, you're the place they go, I don't know. Sometimes the sales rep doesn't really understand the dynamics of the industry and where the products come from. They think a Xerox comes from Xerox. They think another product a brother comes from brother, but it doesn't. There's a middle ground. There's a stopping ground where it's put in warehouses and then it's sent out to the field and ordered from companies like you. So you started in typewriters, you moved into supplies. Now you're heavily into hardware, printers and MFPs. A4, is there any A3 in there too? Is it all A4?
It was early days were A4, and we now sell A3 hardware for both HP and Lexmark has. You've seen some recent stuff from Lexmark about their A3 portfolio and enhancements. And then most recently, the expansion was Xerox. And so that was a expansion earlier in this year that we have long been seeking. We've had a long-standing relationship with Xerox on the supply side of the business and sold some of their A4 printers. Earlier this year, we announced an expansion of that partnership with Xerox to include their A3 products and will soon include their light production products. And
Oh,
so
wow.
Xerox is a little bit different than some manufacturers in that they embrace wholesale distribution, what I call a two-tier distribution, meaning the manufacturer sells to a distributor like us. Then when we resell the product to the reseller that then sells to the end user. So not all manufacturers use that go-to-market or supply chain strategy for their equipment, but Xerox does. And for many years, we were on the outside looking in with Xerox, and they had two other distributors that were supporting the BTA channel. They expanded to us. I think that we announced that in April. And that was a really big announcement for our company because we knew that it was an important component of both the relationship with Xerox holistically, and it was an important brand to the partners that we served. And so, I applaud Carl and his team for considering us and listening to the partners that had been really sharing for some time that they valued the services that we and our team provide, and were willing to expand and partner with us. And so far, we're I guess in month 4, things are going well. We're growing our business. We're getting good feedback from the partners. I think that the experience has proven to be a good one for both Xerox and for us and the partners.
So that's a huge story in so many different ways, so many different ways. The main thing that jumps out at me is you're now carrying production products. And is this something that you carry in other areas, or was this the first time you got into to product category like that?
Well, I think that so much for what we and our competitors that play in distribution participate in is often determined by what manufacturers enable to go through that channel. Okay. And so Xerox is again, they're different, right? And I think that they see the value of inventory and consolidation and transaction sets and the value added services that a distributor like us provide. And so Xerox has had some of their light production gear in distribution. And I think that are moving upstream in terms of what they enable through distribution. I think that where the rubber hits the road is where is there an operational benefit for both the manufacturer as well as the partner, right? Based on the way that products are fulfilled, that the way they're financed, that the way they're delivered, the way they're set up. And more of those products, I think, are being enabled through a distribution model. And so we just got started with Xerox with their basic A3 portfolio. We expect that the light production products will be made available to us in the early part of 25, and as we continue to grow that partnership.
That's very cool. So you're not carrying them yet, but you will be shortly. Do you have to do anything different? I mean, does it just fit right into your system and just more space on the shelves? Is it that easy?
Well, nothing in distribution, I would say, is easy. I would say that what might seem easy on the surface is just pick, pack, and ship and take orders is simple. I think as you move up the stack of technology, things get more complex, right? They get more complex in terms of how the devices are handled, in terms of how they're delivered, in terms of the knowledge of the staff to sell those products and support those products. And so we have been on this journey and the evolution of our expansion with hardware for probably the last 10 years. And so, we started as a supplies company, and then we started getting into hardware, and it fit right into kind of our specialization. And so we adjusted our value added services and make more of those available to be applicable to the products we sell. And so those include, some services that we provide for A4, and certainly those that we're providing for A3.
Now, you have just about every logo I can think of on your website. I spent some time before we had the interview today. There's a new one, right? You were talking to me about before, and I think you're prepared to talk about it. I hope you're prepared to talk about
I
it.
am prepared. Yes.
All right, good. I probably should have
Well,
made sure of that, but
as I think that it is our goal to have anyone that's in the printing and imaging business is to have some form of partnership, right? And so there has been a expansion with a number of the traditional copier manufacturers to enable us to fulfill supplies, right? And the most recent expansion of that is Kyocera, right? And so we are now an authorized distributor for Kyocera supplies and have the full range of toner products in our distribution centers. And that was a really important logo because of how pervasive that brand is in the market and how strong they are with the partners. And so It was the supplies business for us, I would call is a bit more mainstream in terms of the logistics value and where we grew up. And so expansion of toner products is, really it's about expansion of SKUs, investment of inventory, connectivity with the partners, of which many we were doing business with fairly broadly. Many of the major Kyocera dealers buy other brands from us. And so just adding their brand to our offering gives us greater opportunity to provide a comprehensive value to them.
Well, and who doesn't like one-stop shopping, right? When I can put more into that basket and build my order with you, and now I have a bigger number to hold over your head at the end of the year and maybe leverage better pricing, leverage better deals or rebates or whatever you guys are offering. I want to, if I'm gonna order it from 10 different places, it's harder to keep up with. It's harder to, for my people to account for it for everything. And it's just, if it's all in one place, it's easier. So the more brands you get, the more you put in front of me. I think it's just easier, right? It's just as a dealer, I think it just makes my life a lot easier. Following up on
It,
it.
it, it really goes a bit beyond that. It's the simplicity of buying more products from less places is certainly a value, but specifically with the traditional copier manufacturers with their toner, right? The enablement of DM to carry more of those products, and Kyocera is a really critical one to that, right? Is in many cases a fundamental supply chain for some of our key partners, right? The dealers, right? Many of our dealers were buying what they'd call MPS products, right? HP, Lexmark, Brother, others from us, and were drop shipping supplies directly to the end user, and thus had a fairly stockless business model. That stockless business model was predicated based on the margins and efficiencies required, but in many cases by discounting rules that the manufacturers had in place that required them to behave that way. And so as the maturity of the A3 market has continued, right, and in many cases shrinking page consumption and inflationary factors that many of the dealers are facing, the pressure for them to reduce cost, right, was creating more pain that made both the manufacturers of those products as well as the dealers more interested in going stockless, even for traditional A3 products. And that's really the value add beyond just the simple one-stop shop, is taking many of these dealers from a stocking model where they're buying pallets of toner from manufacturer A, B, or C, right, and having technicians or their own people ship product out, is that they can put those products in our facilities, right, that we buy from those manufacturers, and we can consolidate it with the other products that they may have been buying from us, ship to, in many cases, those same end users. There's a fundamental supply chain efficiency gain that the dealers can gain, right? And that is really the approach that we have with both those manufacturers as well as the dealers, is that it is not just about, hey, I'm simplifying my order, but the operation side of this really can take cost out of the business that many of our partners are enjoying.
Well, we've seen dealers, I don't think I'm allowed to say who, but I know some dealers who are getting rid of their warehouses, and that plays right into what your strategy is, which is you don't need warehouses, at least for these products that we carry. And so you bring everything out right to the customer, you set it up, or did the dealer still set it up, install it? Where do you stop?
Generally, with the equipment, the service component of that is largely a key deliverable by the reseller, right? In many cases, we may offer some of those services in markets that they don't serve, right, where we may supplement it, but service of higher end devices is not really what I would say our core competency, other than where we may partner with many BTA dealers that provide that service on our behalf, right? Where we may act almost as a broker for partners to provide those services. We have our own network for MPS for A4 devices where partners can buy those services from us on an a la carte basis, or they can even buy a wholesale page that's inclusive of service, right? And so we're piloting the expansion of that into some A3 devices, but as you probably know, the service complexity of A3 devices and the frequency of service is often far greater than it is in an A4 device. So the deliverables, the SLAs, the operational needs are different. But that is the direction that we're heading, is to provide the services on any device that a reseller would want, provided that it's also not a conflict of the services they offer on their own.
So what is typical shipping like with you guys? Is it, I mean, you must have warehouses all over the place to be able to, regionally at least, I would imagine. Um, how does it work? How does this all work?
Yeah, so it's that's kind of table stakes to be a distributor, is to have, operational footprint. And so we have four primary distribution points that total about 1,000,001 square feet. And we're taking tens of thousands of orders every day, right? And we're shipping those out for parcel shipments, right? This is largely supplies. Parcel shipments are going out the same day, as long as the orders come in by carrier cutoff. And we're delivering those goods to basically 99% of the US population in 2 days, right?
Ooh.
Largely via UPS, FedEx, all those kind of major carriers are key partners of ours. And so if you think about like the operations, in many cases we ship, it'll deliver next day, depending on where the destination is. Our four distribution points are in Pennsylvania, Texas, here in St. Louis, where our headquarters is, and then Fresno, California. And so, because of the proximity of those distribution points and the relationships with those parcel carriers, we're able to get that level of late cutoff and that level of deliverable to the end user in such a quick manner.
So you're the Amazon of office equipment. 2 day
I'm not sure that I
delivery,
would like for us to be characterized as
two
anything
days or
to
two
your
days or
audience,
less.
because of how that might be viewed as a conflict. We would like to view ourselves as a key operational partner to
Yeah.
partners you serve.
But 2 days, that's amazing. That's amazing, right? Like I remember back in the day when I sold it, if we had to wait for the OEM to deliver it because of because they didn't have it in our local warehouse, 2, 3, 4 weeks sometimes. And as a sales rep, 2 days is long enough, right? 2 weeks is you want to eat your stomach because you're just waiting for a competitor to come in and undercut you and ruin the deal. So that's a big deal, turning something around like that and getting that equipment at the customer location. As soon as it's there, that's kind of
Yeah.
it.
Equipment sometimes can be a little more complex because of carriers, right? And so, for us, it's not an issue with us getting out the door. In many cases, larger equipment orders require, half trucks, full trucks, and scheduling and getting the reliability of carriers where they deliver in those time frames can be more challenging than it is in the parcel business. And so they're often, for companies like ours, right, are different deliverables for parcel than there are for equipment, but it's not because of our operational capability. It's often about the carriers that serve the market,
It's
right?
just
And
the
so
way it physically is, right? I mean,
yeah,
you're not controlling all those, points. You,
yeah.
you're relying on some shippers and other things in between. So, but that's still an amazing turnaround. That's impressive. As we wrap up, going forward, where are you guys going to be? Any shows you've been at recently? I think you said Konica. Um, what were you guys doing at that when there was a big show in
Yeah,
Chicago?
we were a sponsor of the Konica event this week in Chicago. In fact, Jason Moore, our MPS sales manager, served on a panel to talk about our integration with some of the Konica tools, BCare being one of those. It's one of their data collection tools that we have integrated with, and those integrations and our MPS services can often be kind of a value add for the reseller that kind of enhances the supplies delivery. But I would say in terms of other events, we're an active participant in BTA. Really, the BTA and copier dealer market is our largest customer segment, and we really want to be anywhere where those dealers are. And so that's industry events, in some cases, manufacturer supported events. And so, I think that many years ago, you might not have seen DM at those events. I think you see us pretty much anywhere and everywhere we can.
Well, I know I've seen you at a lot of BTA events over the last couple of years because that's sort of how you got on my radar. Obviously, I'm not buying equipment, but I like to see who's out there and what they do for the dealers. And you guys popped up a few years ago, and I think you really got my attention. I always knew Supplies Network, but then you changed your name, and that was one of the few times I like the name change. Usually, I'm pretty locked in, and I don't like change, but that was a good name change. That one wasn't bad at all, and then being able to shorten it to DM, that's for me writing articles, I like a nice short two-letter name. That's not bad. But you guys have been fun to watch, and I've enjoyed working with you for a few months. And I'll be seeing you, I'm sure, at some of these events. I'll be speaking at the BTA event. I'm very certain that you guys will be there, and if not, then we'll see you at the next one. But this has been great catching up and finding out a little bit more, digging into who DM is. Anything you want to leave us with? Any shout outs to anybody before we wrap up?
No, not particularly. I mean, I think that I appreciate you inviting me on this morning. Obviously, probably to a lot of your readers, I'm probably the background guy. I'm kind of the vendor guy, and our sales leaders are the ones that are working day in and day out to kind of serve and support the dealers that we are our customers. And so I don't have a gig if they're not supporting those customers and delivering on the value that makes manufacturers consider working with us. So I would be remiss if I didn't at least acknowledge our sales organization and the partners they serve.
Well, they are killing it because you seem like you're everywhere right now. So, good time for DM, and thanks so much for coming on. I'm sure I'll see your team down at one of these meetings, and hopefully, I'll see you at the Executive Connection Summit
You will.
in January. I know I'll be ready to get out of Rochester in January. So, always nice to go there. It was a little cold last year, but it was still warmer than here. So, very happy to go there, and I'll see you there then. That's great. Thanks for coming on today, Monty.
Yeah, great spending time with you, Andy.
Take care. Bye bye.
Yeah.